Okay, so our topic tonight is going to be on pet identification. So we actually have like two topics. We're going to talk a little bit about pet identification and also um, maybe a little bit of preparation into like what if something happened to us, what would happen to our dogs.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I don't necessarily care if something happens to me or my husband. However, my dogs, who will take care of my dogs. Okay. But let's first talk about pet identification. Okay. And what prompted this is because there's been something going around. You might have seen it on Facebook, but the company called Save This Life is a microchip company. And the best thing is, I guess, is that they've gone belly up, but it was like they were there one day and they were gone the next, you know?
Yeah. And if you didn't pay attention to it, you have no idea that your microchip right now is not doing you any good.
Yeah. I don't know how that's going to work. So I'm always a big proponent when your pet comes go into the vet for whatever reason. Okay,
Mhm.
just have them scan the microchip. If you do it once a year, at least you'll have an idea of if the microchip is actually what you think it is.
Well, and it's surprisingly how many people don't realize that it will travel.
Yeah,
So I know when I used to work in the vet office, you have to scan that whole animal because you have no clue where it may be.
yeah, and see what information comes up on it. I personally, I have Home Again, and they just sent me an email, so I'm assuming everything is fine. It was the
Yeah.
email notifying me that one of them my card was being charged. So make sure that the credit card information is accurate and current, and you have the right expiration dates on it. That what that email was about.
Yeah, we have home again as well.
So it doesn't hurt to double check. And if you're not certain, so a question: you worked in the vet's office.
Mhm.
If let's say someone scans Pooh Bear here, does it when they scan the chip, say you find the chip, does it come up with what the particular company is, or does it actually come up with the information for the pet?
At the time, because this was a couple of years ago now, um, it depended on the scanner. So certain scanners are only able to actually scan and have it come up. So we would actually have to use, we had two different scanners. So we would use the one scanner, and if that didn't come up with anything, we would use the other scanner. And when it would come up, it would tell you the chip number. Sometimes it would tell you the company, but it was always the chip number.
All right. So from there, how would you then find out about that chip number? Is there a database?
Yeah, we would have to go into a database, and then that would pull up the information from there.
All right. So my next question is on the chips. Are they specific to a company, or what I'm trying to find out is if two different companies can have the same chip number?
I That's a good question because the companies are different. So I don't know if they have a certain database where they pull numbers from or how they actually number the chips, but they all the different companies have different chips.
Okay. All right. So if you're not certain um, what your chip number, there should be paperwork. But if you're like me, you're like um, paperwork. Somewhere in my desk, I have the chip number and information from the company.
Well, and most of the time, if you're getting it done in the vet office, they'll keep that on file as well. So if you lose your paperwork, you can always call your vet and just say, "Can I get the information for my dog's microchip number?"
Yeah. All right. What about for those of us that move around? Like I'm across the country right now, so my three of the four. Oh no, yeah, three of the four dogs I have now were microchipped at the old vet, and Mickey was actually microchipped at a pet like adoption, not adoption day, but a day that the
Mm.
that like the vets and the microchip companies come to like a big box pet store um, and they did all that there, and and I actually do know where paperwork is for his microchip for Mickey's, because when we brought him home from my mother-in-law's, she had a folder of that information.
Okay.
That's somewhere. But there are also times where the microchip breaks.
Yeah.
So just make sure that your microchip is active. Okay. You know that the microchip company has up to date and current information for you and your pet. Current photograph is always good.
Hmm.
But there are other ways in a pinch to identify your pet. Okay. One of the things in my to go bag is a waterproof Sharpie in case, so I could write down my phone number on the belly of my dog in case we're separated during an evacuation.
Right.
And I would tend to put two phone numbers in there, mine and my daughter who lives on the other side of the country.
Hmm.
Right? They should be able to reach one of us.
Right. And I mean, and not so a natural disaster, it may not work, but for your everyday, because I know if there's some people that are on the more holistic side of things and they might not be real comfortable using the microchip because there's some belief that microchips may possibly cause other health issues, right? So I've started looking into also those GPS collars. So if
Okay?
something were to happen, you can follow your dog on the GPS collars. And I have a couple clients that come in and they have those in there. So, and not to sit there and say that they don't have their dogs microchipped, because they may do both. But on the app, then you can actually track your dog exactly where they're going and where they're at. So that's another option too.
Yeah, you know what? I looked into those probably 15 years ago when they first came out.
Mm-hmm.
And like anything, technology improves. I wasn't too impressed 15 years ago because basically, if there wasn't good cell coverage, it wasn't going to work. Or if your pet was in an area where there was no cell coverage, there's no way to track them.
Right.
So I think maybe at Super Zoo, I'll pay them another visit.
You know what? I would, just because of the fact that now we have satellite options.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it may be able to keep track of them even though you don't have cell towers around.
All right. Another thing that I do when, like, my dogs are boarded right now at a facility.
Mm-hmm.
So they have pictures there of my dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And when I lived in Connecticut and I had them I brought them to a sitter's house. Okay. I had her take a picture of her with the dogs. So if one of them got away from her, she can, and hopefully picked up by animal control, she can go to animal control and say, "Hey, I have a relationship with this dog. I'm the pet sitter," and show the photograph of her with my dog to denote guardianship.
So a lot of times when I leave my dogs with somebody, I will also write a letter. So if they can't get a hold of me, they have a letter of permission, and I put the person's name and information and stuff on there, so they can go in there and say, "I have permission per the owner," if they can't get a hold of me.
I have waivers on them. I had waivers with her. They're now boarded at a facility where I sign all the waivers.
Okay.
Keep in mind that a veterinarian may not treat your pet, in an emergency situation if you're not there and they're brought in by pet sitter, dog walker, or facility, unless you have something signed giving permission.
Right. Exactly.
My philosophy is just do what you have to do. Just and I let my vet know, even though they're boarded and there's waivers, I contact my vet and say, "Hey, they bring my dog down. Just do what you have to do.
Right.
Pay when I get home."
We used to have that when I worked in the vet office. We used to have clients that would come in and put their credit card on file. So if something were to happen in their absence, they would let us know. But then they also had their card on file. So then nobody had to worry about anything.
No, I wish my vet had my card on file.
Yeah.
He's on insulin. Hey, I need insulin and a box of needles. Just charge the card. I'll come pick them up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and we weren't corporate at that point. So we had a little bit more flexibility with how they did their record keeping.
Okay. Yeah. Now the place that my pets go to now, they're not corporate.
Yeah.
Okay. And for anyone that's wondering what the snoring is, can we see them? We see the ear sticking out? That's poo. Okay. All right. So, but the bottom line is you need to have something. And keep in mind, the only problem, okay, I'm going to say with GPS collars or any other kind of collar that's got name and phone number on it, is that the collar can be taken off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The other issue that I have found with the collars that have like names and phone numbers on it is that sometimes I think the owners think it's like a one-time purchase. So the collar is like, yeah. So the
Yeah.
collar is like 12 years old.
Yeah.
They're passing it down. You can't read the numbers on it. It's not everyone feels the need to like wash collars.
Right.
Okay. So yeah. I don't want to insult anybody, but wash the collars every once in a while. All right. They do get dirty and nasty. Okay.
Yes, they do.
Okay. So having backups on everything to identify your pet. So like I said, my dogs are microchipped. I check the microchip company. They generally don't wear collars. The only time they wear collars if they're like outside the house. And I make an effort to make sure that the tag on it is actually accurate. Okay.
Readable.
Readable. Okay. One of the other good things about making sure that your pets are licensed is that you'll get a tag that has a number on it, and that's a license number that is particular to the pet.
Mhm.
So that's also another way of being able to identify your pet. Okay.
Now, I do have a couple of links, but you'll have to help me as far as where to put it just put it in the chat. So basically, they're microchip registry links that you don't, kind of like what it was with Save This Life. So for my understanding, Save This Life, it didn't matter what company your microchip was with. It was the database with all different companies that was able to be accessed. So there's two other links that I found that do basically the same thing. So I can put those in the chat.
Put those in the chat. And the only thing I'm going to say about tattoos is tattoos are not very common. Most people don't know to look for a tattoo, even if the pet is found. Now, working at a former vet's office, is that something that you also checked regularly on pets coming in? Was a tattoo?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Sometimes they start to fade and you don't necessarily see them, or the hair starts to grow over them.
Yeah. So tattooing is not something that I personally would rely upon with my own pets.
I wouldn't rely on a tattoo.
Okay, so if you put the link in the chat here that's on Restream, it should go to all the places. Oh, no, not there.
Okay.
Hold on a second. Let's see. Right there. It'll go to some of them, at least some of them anyway. Facebook and on YouTube, that link will go there. Okay.
I'm going to do that in the same spot for this one.
Okay. Well, And there's, okay, so there's the second link. There's two links here. Okay. All right. So before we move on to the second half, shall we play our commercial?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you tired of putting off your emergency and disaster planning manual? Look no further. This 67-page fillable template will make the process a breeze. Simply fill in the blanks for your business and gain access to checklists for supplies, common hazards, debriefing, evacuation and shelter-in-place protocols, resources, recovery, maintenance, as well as best intake practices. It's time to take action and be prepared. Get your copy today at positiveed.com/books.
All right. So the second half, this is sort of like a two-parter. What happens to our pets if something happens to us? And the first part, and I guess what I really thought about this was because there's in the California wildfires and California Association group, one of the groomers who got burnt out of her home and her business has a 9-year-old Chihuahua mix, and she has to rehome. Okay. So, how do you go about doing that? I mean, how do you plan for that?
I think that's the question. That's a good question. And I was just talking about this with some friends of mine because I don't remember what brought it up, but I had said, one of the things that I always said for years is if something happens to me, what my property and stuff, I don't really care about. But the only thing that I really, really wanted to make sure was that my dogs were taken care of. And I didn't want them put in a shelter. And when I was in Chicago, my neighbor, she was the best neighbor ever. And she was like, don't worry about it. If anything were to happen to you, I'll make sure that your dogs are taken care of. And out here, I've got family out here, but would my family want to really take my dogs in? So that was kind of where the conversation was going. And somebody had said that you can put that in your living trust. So wouldn't to start thinking about that, or even just having it written down somewhere. If you had an agreement with somebody and they said that they would take the dog, just have it written down where somebody would be able to find that.
Well, I saw a commercial not long ago, and it is two people saying, you know what, if something happens to us, they're like, oh, we'll take your kids. And this guy comes up, yeah, that's not legal. You need to put this in a legal document if you really want that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it would have to be something done legally, right? And not just like surprise it on somebody, like, oh, guess what? You got my dogs. Can't complain to us about it. We're dead.
Right.
So, and it's something my husband and I have discussed. So we have the house here, and we haven't done too much talking. We definitely have not put it down on paper. And you know what? And honestly, I think we are putting it off rather than dealing with it. And I think that's kind of a common thing. You put it off because, you know what? I'm going to live forever, Kate. I don't know about you.
I know. And it's true because it's like, that's a part of life. That part is going to come. That's inevitable. But it's really hard, especially I find as I'm getting older, my mind doesn't want to be my age.
Yeah.
And so you feel like, you've got more than enough time. And yet you realize like, not necessarily, nothing's guaranteed. So I think bringing it up and talking about it does put people in a different mind frame that maybe they don't want to enter into.
Yeah, I got one of my daughters is very pragmatic. And she's like, well, why haven't you done this already? She's got 3 cats. I says, I already have my cats already know where they're going.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, not me, right, Cindy? I love cats, but I've got 4 dogs, and they're all some sort of Min Pin Doxy mix. Yeah, I'm just not sure that would be a really happy household.
I know. I think for me, like with Bishop and Tiny, I would probably have people fighting who is going to get them.
Well, I'll be like, yeah, Tiny.
I know. So I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about my dogs. Okay. I think what I'm probably going to have to do is leave my house and money to my dogs
Right.
and let one of my kids be like the, I don't know, caretaker.
Now I have had clients that have, done a living trust and they'll put their dogs in there, but then they also have money that goes with the dog. So the person that takes the dog then has the finances to be able to take care of the dog as well.
Yeah. I suppose that I will be having this conversation with my husband, who will like, I don't want to talk about this. I'm like, fine. Then the second conversation will be with the kids. Okay, this is the deal.
Yeah.
Who wants 4 little dogs?
Now, how old are your dogs?
Okay, well, they're not youngsters. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Well, Cecil and Speedy G, they are siblings. They're good. They're 10 and a half. They'll be 11 really soon.
Okay.
Okay. Pooh Bear here is 9. And Mickey is 7.
So you technically have all seniors.
Technically I have all seniors,
Mm-hmm.
but they're small. I mean, the only ones I consider of the 4 seniors is Speedy and Cecil, and mostly because Cecil is diabetic.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's going to be a cost on somebody too, if they're going to have to take them in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that makes it harder too.
Yeah. So now there are, and I just realized I paid for it for the year because I wasn't fast enough to cancel the subscription. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I have a subscription to Legal Nature.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
So you should be able to type something up and get yourself covered.
Yeah, I probably could. And being as I've already paid for it for the year,
Right? Might as well utilize it.
might as well use it.
Anybody else out there want her to do one for you?
I do have Legal Nature. Yeah. All right. So, what are the suggestions? I mean, obviously, this starts off with a conversation. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, having that conversation, finding out, and maybe like I got 3 kids. Okay.
Mhm.
And honestly, there's probably one of the 3 that I think the dogs would do well in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Not the other 2. The other 2, one of them has got a thing for pit bulls, and yeah, I've got they're little assholes. What can I say? You're gonna look at the pit bull, okay, and harass that pit bull until it breaks, and then eats them.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Well, the daughter's got cats.
Okay.
Okay.
You might get along with the cats, no?
No, they're min pins and dachshund mixes. There'd be another instance in which, and I'm pretty sure on the breed standard for dachshunds and min pins, it says asshole.
I'll have to look at that.
I'm almost positive.
Poor dogs.
They're not disagreeing.
He's not even popping up to defend himself.
No, he's like, yeah, and so they're not going to be a good mix with cats. So I think when you're thinking about what you're going to do with your dogs, is that it's got to be appropriate.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we're going to have people that may come to our mind that we think they would be good, but do they want to?
That's
Is
another
that
question.
the right environment?
Yeah.
And if it's not, then what's your plan B?
Yeah.
So, because it's really unfortunate. I've seen quite a bit, like in the local community pages. There's been a couple where the dogs, and they're seniors, and the owner had passed away, and now they're looking for somewhere for these dogs to go.
Yeah.
And it's hard enough to find a stranger to take in a senior dog. So definitely have conversation.
Yeah, and not only if you have like I have 4 dogs, they're all 4 seniors. Would someone take in 4 senior dogs?
Right. And it's one of those things too where maybe like are there two of yours that are more bonded than the others? Could they be separated? And if so, like who should go with who?
Right. All right. Something else to add to my to-do list. Thank you very much, Kate.
No problem.
All right. All right. So I hope we got a lot out of this episode. Is there anything else you want to add to anything we've discussed?
I don't think so. I think we covered a good amount of information.
Okay, cool. All right. So there will be a 2-week break from the live stream, and we'll be back live March 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
The episodes go up as podcasts every other week. So I think the only so far we're up to number 7 that is scheduled for podcast. And this is episode number 10. So we might catch up a little bit so it's not so far apart. But anyway, we will see you live in 3 weeks. Again, if you have any questions, we would love to have a topic and not decide on the topic 45 minutes before we go live.
But hey, so far we've been doing pretty good, huh?
I think so.
Yeah.
And as far as upcoming events, I'll be at Groomed in Atlanta in a couple of weeks. After that is for me is the Tacoma show at the end of April. Where will you be, Kate?
On the pet industry side of things, right now I don't have anything scheduled.
What about the first responder side of things?
The first responder side of things, I will be traveling a lot. So I'm going within Arizona. I've got a couple different departments that I'm going to be going to for the CISM class.
All right. What is CISM?
It is critical incident stress management.
Okay.
So it is working with all the different departments and their peer support staffing. And so Bishop and I will be attending those classes and being able to talk about Bishop's mission.
Very good. All right. So we'll see everybody in 3 weeks.